you can grow huge garlic. By the end of this video, you'll know where to get the best seed garlic, which varieties to choose, how to prepare your cloves for planting, and what to do to increase your yield to grow bigger garlic than you've ever found in the grocery store. And as a bonus, I'll be including a semi-controversial tip about planting out garlic that's different from your common advice. Timestamps are below, so if you already know what you came here for, feel free to skip to that section of the video. Let's start by digging into the different types of garlic so you know which variety to choose and where to find it. There are two main types of garlic. You have hardneck and you have softneck, and there's a few key differences between the two. Hardneck garlic has a hard stalk running through the center of the bulb. This is the flower stalk, also known as a scape. And we'll talk more about those as well as what to do with them later on in the video. Hardneck garlic produces fewer, larger cloves that have a pretty intense flavor. And hardneck garlic performs best in colder temperatures. In fact, hardneck garlic needs to experience at least 10 weeks of weather below 40 degrees in order to actually create garlic cloves. This is equivalent to about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. If you live in zones 2 through 6, this is the garlic for you. Some popular varieties of hardneck garlic include music, German white, and porcelain varieties. Softneck garlic, on the other hand, you guessed it, does not have a flower stalk in the center of the bulb. Softneck garlic also produces more garlic cloves, but they're a little bit smaller than your hardneck varieties. And they also tend to have a bit more of a mild flavor. And sticking with our opposites trend, softneck garlic performs really well in warmer regions because it only needs about 4 to 6 weeks of that cooler weather in order to achieve nice garlic cloves. It's also the most common garlic found in grocery stores because it's easy to grow and it has a long shelf life. Some popular varieties include silver skin, enchelium red, and artichoke. Now, this doesn't mean that if you live in a cold climate, you can never grow softneck, or if you live in a warmer climate, you can never grow hardneck. It just means that you will see varying levels of success based off of the variety you choose to grow. Now, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. I know I said there were only two kinds of garlic, and that's true, but there's also something called elephant garlic, which you may have heard of before. It's most similar to a hardneck garlic, which has really large cloves. However, elephant garlic is not actually garlic at all. It's a kind of leaf, which is why I didn't mention it in the first two categories. But all the planting rules still apply to elephant garlic. Now that we know the main types of garlic and the differences between them, let's talk about where to find them. And if your plan was to go to the grocery store and purchase garlic for planting, you might want to think again, because all garlic is not created equal. Grocery store garlic has a few downsides. Number one, you're effectively purchasing mystery garlic. And while some of you may enjoy the thrill of the unknown, keep in mind that the garlic you buy at the grocery store may not be the best suited for your zone. Number two, you open up the possibility of introducing pests and disease into your garden. Garlic is sold to you at the grocery store under the assumption that you're going to be eating it, not growing it. So producers are not concerned with disease on the garlic if it's still edible. And number three, poor quality. Most grocery store garlic is sprayed with chemicals to reduce the chance of it sprouting, therefore extending its shelf life. This also means that the garlic could be pretty old, so you'll have variable rates of it sprouting anyway. So if grocery store garlic isn't the answer, then what is? I present to you certified seed garlic. But what is that? I'm so glad you asked. Certified seed garlic has been tested to ensure that it's disease and pest free, and it has not been sprayed with any growth inhibiting hormones to prevent it from sprouting prematurely. And just to clarify, it's not actually a seed. You grow garlic from garlic cloves, but you plant it like a seed, so it's called seed garlic. It's the same as potatoes. You grow potatoes from potatoes, but we call them seed potatoes. Anyway, I digress. So where do we find this magical seed garlic? Well, from reputable seed companies. If you're in the United States, I'll pop a few that I know of on the screen here, so feel free to take a screenshot. If you're outside of the United States, I don't know if these companies ship to you, but just do an internet search for seed garlic and you should find plenty of options. If you know of other companies that sell seed garlic that I don't have posted here, put that down in the comments as well as the country that you live in so that other viewers can get some great suggestions. And if you prefer to go get your garlic at a physical store, I would highly recommend going to your local feed store. Big box stores will also sell garlic, but just make sure you check the cloves before you leave the store because sometimes they're not the best quality. Wherever you choose to get your garlic, make sure you purchase it early, about 1 to 2 months before you actually need it. Garlic is a really popular thing to grow, and these companies will sell out. So don't be the person waiting until the last minute. Okay, so you have your garlic, and now it's time to plant it. But when is that exactly? Wherever you live in the world, aim to have your garlic in the ground 2 to 6 weeks before your first frost. The idea here is that you want your cloves to start growing and create roots before your first hard freeze sets in. And the reason we plant garlic in the fall is because, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, garlic needs a set amount of time below 40 degrees in order to achieve something called vernalization or stratification. If garlic does not go through this process, it will end up creating just one large bulb, known as a garlic pearl, with no discernible garlic cloves. Now, if you live in a warmer climate that doesn't experience enough chill hours, or perhaps you're planting out your garlic later than you intended, don't worry, I have a hack for you. All you have to do is put your garlic in the fridge. Now, hardneck garlic will need approximately 10 weeks in the fridge, and softneck garlic will need about 4 to 6. Just make sure you look up the vernalization period for the variety of garlic you chose to grow. If you've learned something new so far in this video, I'd love if you'd hit that like button or even consider subscribing. When you do that, you are telling YouTube that you find this content valuable, and it pushes it out to other viewers just like you who also want to grow amazing garlic. Now let's talk about preparing our garlic for planting. In front of me, I have 2 varieties of garlic. I have Inchellium Red, and this is actually my own garlic that I grew last year and harvested this June. And I have a new variety I'm trying out this year called Nootka Rose. Both of these are softneck varieties because I live in North Texas, Zone 8, and these grow really well for me. The first thing you want to do is separate all of your cloves out from the bulb and sort them. You want to discard any of them that look rotten or mushy. Make sure you leave the paper on your cloves because they don't want to be naked. The paper protects the cloves from rotting prematurely, and it has chemical compounds in it that help the garlic to grow. If you accidentally rip off some of this paper, you're done for. I'm sorry, but you need to try again next year. Just kidding, you're fine. Don't panic, it'll be okay. Plant it anyway. Now at this stage, all of the traditional advice would tell you to only keep the largest cloves and discard or eat everything else. The reasoning here is that the largest cloves are going to produce the largest bulbs. And while I don't disagree with that, I also ask, what do you have to lose by planting out the medium ones as well? Last year, I ran a little experiment. I planted out 54 of what I would consider large cloves and 46 of what I would say were medium to smaller cloves. And what I found was that many of my medium cloves produced bulbs that were just as large as my large cloves. So here's my hot take. Discard the little itty bitty ones, but plant everything else if you have the space. You likely paid a pretty penny for this garlic and you'd might as well get your money's worth. The worst case scenario is you get a couple smaller bulbs, but it's still more garlic than you started out with, and then you can save those largest bulbs for planting the next year and just rinse and repeat. Moving on. Now that we've separated out all of our cloves, it's time to do a 2-part soak. For the first step, I like to soak my garlic in isopropyl alcohol for 10 minutes. It's also known as rubbing alcohol, or you can even use vodka. Doing this sterilizes your cloves and reduces the risk of growing mold or spreading disease, and we don't want those things. The second step is a liquid fertilizer soak. I use about 1 gallon of water to 2 tablespoons of this AgroThrive. You don't have to use this exact one if you can't get your hands on it. Any liquid fertilizer should do. What you're doing here is infusing the cloves with a boost of nutrients to promote faster root development, healthier plant growth, and ideally, larger bulbs. Soak your cloves in this fertilizer solution for a minimum of 30 minutes, but if you can, overnight is best. But here's the deal. Both of these things are simply recommendations. If you can't get your hands on any fertilizer, or maybe you're short on time, you can still grow garlic just by popping it in the ground. These methods will just give you bigger, healthier bulbs, and that's what we're here for, right? Because I am growing 2 different varieties this year, I've separated them out into these mesh bags so I don't get them confused. This smaller bag here contains the Nootka Rose, and I have 20 cloves in there. And this larger bag here is the Inchellium Red, and I have 110 cloves in there. And you can actually see that some of them were already starting to sprout in my pantry because I've had them in storage for I think at least 5 months now. Once our cloves are done with their spa day, it's time to go underground. Now, garlic does not compete well with weeds, so make sure you fully weeded the area and you have loose, well-draining soil. And you'll hear me say this in almost all of my growing guides, but I would recommend amending your soil with 2 to 3 inches of fresh compost and a good organic all-purpose fertilizer. This ensures that no matter what you're planting, they get to start their life off on the right foot with plenty of nutrients. And if you're curious about my favorite fertilizers, I'll link those down in the description for you. Now that our space is prepared, let's get planting. Garlic likes to be planted 2 to 4 inches deep and spaced about 6 inches apart. Now I have to give my husband all the credit here because he saw me delicately planting out all of my cloves last year by hand, and I planted 100. So he quickly made me this little contraption. I highly recommend doing something like this if you're planting a large volume of cloves. Each section here is about 4 inches deep, so it stops at the soil level I need it at, and it's about 6 inches apart. This truly makes planting a breeze. So then all you have to do is jab it into the soil, wiggle it around a little bit. That sounds a little inappropriate. And voila, perfectly spaced, perfect depth garlic. Since I like 6-inch spacing in between all of my plants, I will actually take this tool and do it long ways on the bed first. And then I'll use those holes as my guide to come up and line up the tool for the width of my bed, which then gives you perfect spacing all the way down. When planting out your garlic, make sure you plant them pointy side up, and the bottom end, which is where the roots are going to grow from, well, towards the bottom. Garlic is not very good at orienting itself, so if you plant it upside down or sideways, it likely won't germinate well. Once you have all your garlic planted out, you need to top your garlic with mulch. Not only does mulch help maintain soil moisture, but it also helps to protect it from the upcoming cold weather. Think of your mulch like a warm, cozy blanket for your garlic to snuggle up in through the cold weather. You want anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of mulch on top. I tend to stick with about 3 inches of mulch because I don't experience really harsh winters. But if you do, I would recommend more mulch. For mulch, you can do something like a hay or straw, which is what I use, or a leaf mulch or even grass clippings. For garlic, I would stay away from the heavier mulches like wood chip mulch because you don't want anything getting in the way of your garlic sprouting and coming through the mulch. Light mulches like this also decompose quicker, so they add great organic material to your soil over time. And don't waste the water and fertilizer solution that you soaked your garlic in. This is still really wonderful fertilizer, so I like to pour it all over my freshly planted garlic. Now, after about 4 to 8 weeks, you should see your garlic start to sprout. And this is a good thing because you know that the roots are starting to develop. Now let's talk some overall garlic maintenance. When it comes to fertilizing, I like to fertilize my garlic about 3 to 4 times throughout the growing season. And I ensure that the bed remains weed-free the entire time. Personally, I like to use an all-purpose organic granular fertilizer because that releases nutrients over time. You can certainly use a liquid fertilizer for this as well, especially if you need a quick boost of nutrients. Just remember that liquid fertilizers tend to wash out of the soil quicker because they're liquid. So you might even want to do a 2-pronged approach where sometimes you do a liquid fertilizer and sometimes you do a granular fertilizer. In regards to watering, if your garlic has gone dormant during the winter months, you don't need to really water again until spring. But if your garlic is still growing, like mine typically does, I recommend keeping a watering schedule of about once a week, and then as you move into the summer, about twice a week. But remember, you can always dig in your soil a little bit just to test how damp it is to see if you need to water more or less. Now, do you remember in the beginning of the video when I said that hardneck garlic produces something called a scape? About midsummer, around 6 weeks before harvest time, hardneck garlic will send up a flower stalk, and it's pretty distinguishable as it's got a curlicue on the end. But here's the deal. Producing a flower takes a ton of energy from your plant. And since energy is a finite resource, or at least it is for me, and you can't really give your garlic coffee like I drink every day, you will want to remove this flower stalk. This way, your garlic can put all of its energy into producing a nice big bulb and not producing flowers. But guess what? Scapes are edible. You can get fancy with it if you want to and put the scapes in a pesto or even pickle them, or you can just toss them into your next salad or a stir-fry recipe for a nice garlicky, oniony touch. Now that you've mastered growing and caring for your garlic, you're probably wondering when you can harvest. And a particular phrase comes to mind. Have you ever heard that good things are worth waiting for? Well, garlic takes a whopping 8 to 10 months from seed to harvest. Yes, that means you can experience an entire pregnancy in the time that it takes your garlic to grow. Whoa. Anyway, your garlic is ready when it starts having contractions. I mean, when half of its leaves have gone yellow and started to die off, and some of your stems even might be flopping over. If you want to see a full harvesting video, including tips on how to prepare your garlic for long-term storage, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a beet or a clove. Thank you so much for watching and happy growing!